All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Kara Dansky. Kara is the senior counsel for the ACLU's Center for Justice. She is the primary author of a new study entitled War Comes Home, the Excessive Militarization of American Policing, which you can find at aclu.org. You can also follow her on Twitter at kdansky. Kara, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Kara, this report is really, really stunning. It's really, really disturbing. It's about the militarization of American policing. Tell us, what exactly were you looking for, and what did you find when you did this study?
Sure. So about a year and a half ago, we decided to launch this study, in part because we knew that for decades, the war on drugs had been being fought particularly aggressively and unnecessarily aggressively in communities of color. We also knew, because we were seeing increasing anecdotes in the media, that policing seemed to be getting increasingly aggressive across the board. And we also knew that some research had been done into the militarization of policing, but that research was a little over a decade old and had been based on some survey data of police departments across the country. And what no one had done, as far as we could tell, was do a study examining actual raw data gathered from individual police departments to try to get a glimpse into, first of all, how much money and weaponry police departments are getting from the federal government, and second of all, how they were using the money and weaponry designed for battle to conduct everyday policing in local communities.
So what did you find? I know one of the stats that you found that is really, really stunning is a lot of the study focuses on SWAT teams, and that you actually found that there is 45,000 SWAT raids every single year. That seems like a lot to me.
It's pretty stunning, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we learned through the course of our research is that SWAT was created several decades ago to deal with real emergency scenarios, things that you or I or many of your listeners would probably think of as appropriate for a SWAT team, like an active shooter scenario, or there are sometimes when people barricade themselves and hold others hostage, and you need to send in a specially trained team with special equipment that's trained to handle that kind of scenario. But what we have learned is that over the course of the several decades since SWAT was created, is that SWAT teams and other kinds of tactical teams are being used increasingly to conduct ordinary law enforcement, especially for the purpose of serving search warrants in drug cases, often for pretty small amounts of drugs. And so that's where you arrive at the 45,000 figure. I think that figure was found by a professor named Peter Kraska, who has done some work on this issue going back several decades. But yeah, that's exactly right. There are not 45,000 emergency scenarios every year warranting a SWAT raid. So police departments are using these SWAT teams and other kinds of tactical teams to engage in military tactics in some pretty ordinary law enforcement scenarios where we would say the SWAT team is, first of all, not necessary, and second of all, more importantly, particularly dangerous and likely to escalate the risk of violence.
Yeah, and again, I'm talking to Kara Dansky from the ACLU about the new report, War Comes Home, the Excessive Militarization of American Policing. What's horrible about this is, in the report, you actually do talk about some of the innocent casualties of these actions. And again, it's not even just like the mental strain and the mental strain on a community of having like a tank roll down the street, which that's bad enough. I mean, that would be enough for a conversation. Like and we even can talk about that later. Like this is bad for a community to see a SWAT team coming down the street just to find a little bit of drugs in somebody's homes. But many people have died. You found. Tell us you have some of the stories of in the report of some of the people who were killed or seriously injured from these SWAT raids. Tell us about some of those people.
Sure. Well, one of the more recent ones involved a 19-month-old child who was asleep in his crib in a house in a small county outside of Atlanta. And this family, it's important to understand, this family was there visiting an extended family member because their home, the immediate family, their home in Wisconsin had burned down. So this family really had nothing. They came to Georgia to stay with an extended family member. And the police in that county were looking for one of the extended family members who was suspected of dealing $50 worth of drugs. So it's important to have some perspective there, $50 worth of drugs. And they decided to serve a search warrant on the home where they thought the guy was going to be. It turned out he wasn't there. But they served a search warrant in the middle of the night. They sent a SWAT team out, and they threw in what's called a flashbang grenade. This is similar to a grenade. It was created by the British Army for use in combat. They threw it into the home, and it landed in this baby's crib. It detonated in the crib, and it caused some severe injuries to this child. Again, this happened at 3 a.m. His 3 older sisters were in the room when this happened. The police stormed in. They yelled at everyone to get on the ground. The mom said, "Please let me go to my baby." They yelled at her to shut up. They held people at gunpoint. So this is the kind of thing that happens in America. And as you say, it often results in tragedy to the people who are in the homes. There have been cases where it results in tragedy to police officers because people who are in the homes believe that they're being burglarized and sometimes use weapons, and police have been killed this way. But it's also important to point out that in the far majority of instances, these kinds of tragedies actually don't happen. But this is the kind of thing that happens routinely in America. I should say in certain communities in America, because it's not that all communities experience this equally.